For over 1 million years, humans controlled fire without knowing how to create it. Let that sink in for a second. Not decades, not centuries, over 1 million years of relying on flames that we could never light ourselves. This is the story of the first fire, and why almost everything you think you know about cavemen discovering fire is wrong. Let's start with what we actually know. The earliest solid evidence of humans controlling fire comes from a place called Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. Deep inside this cave, archaeologists found burned bone fragments and ash residue dating back roughly 1 million years, created by an early human ancestor, likely Homo erectus, not modern Homo sapiens. This wasn't a campfire built from scratch. It was evidence that something was burning, deliberately, deep enough inside a cave that it couldn't have been a wildfire that wandered in by accident. Around the same time period, at a site called Swartkrans, also in South Africa, researchers found burned animal bones alongside stone tools, suggesting fire wasn't just present, it was being used, likely to cook. And then there's Gesher Benot Yaakov in what is now Israel, where archaeologists found repeated layers of burned material and flint tools spanning tens of thousands of years, dated to around 790,000 years ago. Repeated, layer after layer, not a single lucky spark, but a pattern of humans returning to the same place using fire again and again, generation after generation. Here's the detail that changes the entire story. None of this proves these humans knew how to make fire. It only proves they knew how to use it and how to keep it going. Because making fire, actually creating a flame from nothing using friction or sparks, is a completely different skill from keeping an existing flame alive. And the evidence for that second skill, the ability to create fire on demand, doesn't show up in the archaeological record until dramatically later. Some of the clearest evidence for fire-starting technology, things like strike-a-light kits using flint and pyrite or friction-based fire drills, only appears somewhere between 40,000 and 100,000 years ago. That's a staggering gap. For roughly 1 million years, give or take, humans had fire in their lives without the ability to summon it themselves. So where did that fire come from? From nature. Lightning strikes starting wildfires, volcanic activity, naturally occurring peat fires that could smolder underground for weeks. Early humans weren't inventors of flame, they were opportunists. When a wildfire swept through, instead of running from it entirely, some early humans appear to have followed behind the burn, taking advantage of animals that had died in the fire, already cooked, already easier to eat. At some point, someone, we'll never know who or when exactly, figured out something extraordinary. You didn't have to let the fire die. You could carry a burning branch. You could feed it. You could protect it from rain and wind. You could keep it alive indefinitely, passing the same flame from one fire to the next for years, potentially for generations, without ever needing to know how to create it from nothing. Think about what that actually meant for daily life. If your fire went out, through rain, through carelessness, through simply running out of fuel at the wrong moment, you couldn't just make another one. You had to find fire, beg it, trade for it, or wait, possibly for a very long time, for lightning to strike again. Losing your fire wasn't an inconvenience. It could be a genuine crisis for an entire group. This single fact reshapes how we should picture early human societies. It's likely that someone, or some small group, within early human bands had a specific and vital responsibility. Keep the fire alive, not let it go out. Tend it through the night, through storms, through migrations. In a very real sense, some of the very first specialized jobs in human history may not have been hunter or toolmaker, they may have been firekeeper. And the value of fire, once captured and maintained, was enormous. Fire meant warmth in cold climates that would otherwise have been unsurvivable, allowing early humans to expand into regions of the world that would have killed them without it. Fire meant protection. Nearly every predator on Earth is instinctively wary of flame, meaning a fire at the edge of a camp acted as a kind of ancient security system, keeping large predators at bay while people slept. But perhaps fire's biggest impact wasn't warmth or safety at all, it was food. There's a well-known idea in anthropology called the cooking hypothesis, proposed by primatologist Richard Wrangham. The theory suggests that cooking food didn't just make it taste better, it fundamentally changed human biology. Cooked food is dramatically easier to digest than raw food. Heat breaks down tough fibers and proteins, meaning our bodies spend far less energy digesting it and absorb more calories from the same amount of food. Over hundreds of thousands of years, this may have allowed our ancestors' digestive systems to shrink, freeing up energy that could be be redirected elsewhere, including toward growing a larger, more energy-hungry brain. In other words, the simple act of controlling fire, of keeping a stolen flame alive night after night, may be one of the reasons human brains are as large and complex as they are today. Fire changed something else too, something less biological and more social. Before fire, the day essentially ended at sunset. There was little to do in complete darkness except sleep, but a fire at night creates a small circle of light and warmth, a gathering point. Some researchers argue this is where a huge amount of early human culture may have originated. Storytelling, social bonding, and shared meals, all clustered around the flickering light of a fire that somebody at some point had to keep from dying. Now here's where the story takes an unexpected turn, into mythology. Across wildly different cultures, separated by oceans and thousands of years with no possible contact between them, an eerily similar myth keeps appearing. The idea that fire wasn't something humans figured out on their own, it was stolen. In Greek mythology, it's Prometheus, defying the gods to steal fire from Olympus and gift it to humanity, suffering eternal punishment for the act. In many indigenous traditions across North America, fire is often taken from a distant, guarded source, sometimes from animals, sometimes from powerful spirits, through cleverness or trickery rather than invention. Similar fire theft myths appear in parts of Africa, in Polynesian traditions, and across Asia. Why would so many unrelated cultures independently tell the same basic story? Fire is something you take, not something you make. One compelling idea is that these myths are cultural memory, echoing something genuinely true about our deep past. For the overwhelming majority of the time our ancestors used fire, they truly couldn't create it. They could only capture it, protect it, and pass it along. From this perspective, the story of Prometheus isn't a fantasy about defying gods. It might be one of the oldest surviving descriptions of the human relationship with fire, encoded into myth long after anyone remembered exactly how it started. Eventually, humans did crack the code. Someone, somewhere, tens of thousands of years ago, figured out that striking certain stones together produced sparks hot enough to catch dry tinder. Someone else discovered that spinning a wooden stick rapidly against a wooden base created enough friction to ignite a small ember. These techniques spread, were refined, and were passed down. And for the first time in human history, fire stopped being something you had to find. It became something you could summon. But by the time that happened, fire had already been shaping human bodies, human brains, and human societies for the better part of 1,000,000 years. We didn't invent fire and then build civilization around it. We stole fire from the natural world, kept it barely alive through countless close calls, and only learned to create it ourselves after it had already made us who we are. So the next time you strike a match or flick a lighter without a second thought, remember that this simple, instant act was, for nearly the entirety of human history, completely out of reach. Our ancestors didn't make that first fire, they stole it, and they never let it go out. Subscribe and like the video for more videos like this.